Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone to Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Well, welcome everyone to today's session of The Bend. Today, I am really pumped to have one of my favorite veterinarians on. This is Dr. Cody Creelman. You might recognize him as Cody Creelman, the cow vet. He kind of made himself famous videoing his arm up the rear end of the cow. So this is a podcast, as you know, that asks our guests kind of share their bends in the road and how they move through them through tough times. And having known Cody for a while now, I know his story, and I know you're going to be really excited to hear about how he has navigated some of the bends in the road, and most importantly, how successful his new practice, Fen Vet, is out there in the world, and how he has veterinarians waiting in line to come and work for him, because this is the key to the kingdom. Everybody wants to know, Cody. So welcome to The Bend, and I can't wait to share your story.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So let's talk about your origin story. How did you get started in your professional life as a vet?
Yeah, absolutely. I never really considered veterinary medicine as a career until this lady on my school bus when I was 16 years old. She said that I would enjoy doing a volunteer work experience program at our local vet clinic. She had just finished doing a rotation there. She was in my grade. I had worked on her parents' farm, so she knew that I was interested in cows and horses and all those things, but I was not an academic student by any means. And I said, that sounds interesting, sounds better than school. So I called the local vet clinic, signed up, and from the moment that the iodine and dog piss permeated my sinuses, I have been forever hooked on this profession. It was instant. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I think what I loved the most of it all was just the chaos of just like walking into work every day and not knowing what the day was going to bring. And I, certainly developed self-awareness of why else I love the profession, but just that chaos of just that excitement and the stories that I could tell. I remember I was late every day for school after my lunch break because I would go to the vet clinic all morning and then go to school in the afternoon. And I was lunch for my English class, and I would walk in and I would have placenta dripping off my elbows and my hands would be stained with iodine. And I remember my English teacher, she would stop the class every single time and would say, "Okay, Cody, tell us your story." And I would go into this amazing recounting of my morning of, doing phlebotomies and lancing abscesses and getting stuck in a ditch going out to a C-section and just on and on. And I think she just got a kick out of it because she saw the spark in my eye. So that's, I just put my head down and decided that I would do this thing, and just blindly applied to my local university, which was 6 hours away. Absolutely had a horrendous first year experience where I saw my vet school dreams fleeting because I just wasn't able to understand how to get these really great grades to be accepted into vet school. And it took me another year before I realized that I'm not the smartest, but I can certainly work the hardest. So I just put in more hours than anybody else, and didn't get into vet school after my first try or my second try or my third try. It was actually my fourth try before they let me in, and had an amazing vet school experience. For me, going to vet school was like getting into Hogwarts. It was like getting my letter to become a wizard, and I would do it all over again. It was just like a magical time of, personal growth and development. And yes, it's very, very hard, but it's such a, special moment in our lives. And the whole time I thought I was going to be a mixed animal practitioner. I thought I was going to go out into the world and treat all of the animals in this sort of kind of modern James Herriot-esque sort of situation. I certainly had an interest in cattle medicine, but throughout vet school, I was interested in everything. I excelled in small animal surgery. I loved orthopedics. I loved pathology. I loved everything. So I thought I was just going to go to rural mixed practice, could do primarily companion animals. And then as I got more and more mature in my career, the old crusty practice owner would let me do more and more cattle work. And then maybe one day I would be kind of the cow vet of the mixed animal practice. In that, I got an opportunity to apply to a cow vet only practice and was really agonizing over that decision of like, do I jump into this sort of specialty type practice? It was beef cattle only, not even dairy. It was just feedlot and cow calf. Or do I continue on this career path that I had kind of expected to go on and go into a rural mixed practice? So at the end, I just decided, you know what, this is a unique opportunity. And if I hate it, then I'll just go back into mixed practice and the rest will be history. And jumped into it and absolutely loved the working with farmers and the cattle side. And after 2 years, I became a partner, and that's kind of where I started on my path of loving business. So now jumping in, I was completely unprepared, no training at all, nothing. Practice ownership or management was not on my radar at all. I just wanted to be a vet. And it was great trial by fire, and I made all the mistakes possible. But really understood that I do love the management side. I love the human resource side. I love the marketing. I love that business development. So in that, as my practice career evolved, managed to grow that to 6 veterinary clinics, buying into a bunch of mixed animal practices across Alberta and Saskatchewan, giving me another, great experience and learning curve. And then in 2019, faced with a very toxic partnership all along, I made the decision to divest and to move on my first real bend in the, in my career trajectory.
Yeah.
So that kind of is what led me to the companion animal side of things, but we can talk about that in a minute of like, what
I do want to back up just a minute, because one of the things that you did while you were working in this cattle practice is you started a YouTube channel, and it went crazy. I mean, the thing I remember most about Cody is my last trip out as a speaker right before quarantine was with Cody and a couple of other veterinarians and Daniel Lambert. And we drove from Charlotte, North Carolina to Atlanta, Georgia together. And as we're going through traffic in Atlanta, Cody pulls out a cow mask head. The reactions to the people in the traffic were priceless, but we had a great trip. That was a lot of fun. And that was my last trip out before everything in the world got shut down, and we were at home for 2 years. So it was a big event, and I'm glad we got to do it together. But I want to talk about, how did you get the idea to start this cow vet show, and how did it play out?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting, part of the career. It all just started very organically with a website developer. We got a website developer in, because the practice I joined in 2011 did not have a website. This was like an old school, like we had a paper book for calls, and Outlook email, and that was it. There was nothing fancy. There was no Slack or Hangouts or practice management software, website, nothing. You could only pay by cash or check. It
Oh,
was,
wow.
it was that. This is 2011.
Yeah, well,
So
they're still out there, Cody. They're still out there.
so this is, this was the practice that I jumped into.
Mhm.
So I, in that, was really looking to carve, my path within the practice, and took lead in helping develop this website. And just as it happens, the website developer was also very interested in Web 2.0 and social media marketing. And none of this was on my radar. I didn't even have a smartphone at that point. I'm just old enough to be kind of the last vintage to graduate and go through vet school without having a smartphone in my hands. I was still writing. This is just 11 years ago, but I was still writing my notes out with a pen. So I didn't grow up with that. I was not at all the tech savvy, social media type at all. But with his encouragement, he really turned me on to, this is the next generation of marketing. This is eyeballs and ears. This is attention. This is, what needs to happen in a modern business in order for you to acquire new customers. So it started very slowly and organically, gave me a couple of books to read. But I think I don't talk about this part very often, but one of the most interesting things that he did was he just showed me a short video of a wine merchant in New York, actually in New Jersey, in Edison, New Jersey, of a wine library TV show by Gary Vaynerchuk. Essentially, this guy who put a camera in front of him and a couple bottles of wine, and he just did honest reviews on wine. And when I saw that, it just clicked for me that, like, it doesn't have to be crazy or fancy. It's just like talking authentically and sharing your story. So for me, that social media journey was really just a long progression from, learning about what Twitter was, learning about what Instagram was. And I would say what the kind of next step or the paradigm shift for me was when I started to understand video. Because there's only a few different mediums that we can communicate, right? We can only communicate by the written word, audio, and video. Like, we don't have very many other options beyond that.
Mhm.
So if you're going to communicate with the world, you kind of have to choose one. And I'm not a very good writer. And at that time, audio, there really wasn't very many podcast options. So you could either tweet, or you could post a picture on Instagram, or there was these new sort of apps coming online that were gaining popularity, like Vine and Snapchat. And that was the first time that I'd ever turned a camera onto my face. And really, it just came down to, it was the most comfortable and effective way that I could communicate to the outside world. So I just started doing this sort of chronological storytelling of my day. I would, on Snapchat, say I'm going out to preg test the 200 cows. Then I'd do a couple snaps of, my arm going into a cow preg testing, or a video of the ultrasound screen, petting the farm dog. And then I would give a little update as to, oh, that producer was amazing today, great conception rate, just basic storytelling. And I'd usually mix in some silly things, like I would lip sync to Taylor Swift on the drive home. But it was just this storytelling. And that's where I think it really started resonating with vet students, with other veterinary professionals. And I didn't realize it at the time, but all I was doing was just showing that there's a veterinarian out there having an authentic story and is happy. Like, that was something that they weren't seeing a lot of at the time.
Yeah.
That there was somebody out there that just had this, love of life and love of veterinary medicine, and that's all I was showcasing. And into the videos after that, it was really just a natural progression. It was, Snapchat disappears after 24 hours. So I was just became obsessed with thinking about, what is the next version of that? And I got into watching some vloggers on YouTube that were just also doing this chronological storytelling of their day, but in a more sort of artistic or cinematic sort of format. And I had no videographer skills. I had never edited video before. I didn't know how to modulate audio. I didn't even know how to upload to YouTube or Facebook. But through sheer determination and will, I started doing it, and I just kept doing it over and over again. And soon it was 10 videos, and then it was 100, and then it was hundreds. And honestly, it changed the course of my career in terms of the opportunities, the connections, just through telling that authentic story.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was really a blessing to vet med, because find a lot of students going into veterinary medicine, and the same thing for technicians, with unrealistic expectations of what the day looks like. And you were telling a real story out there, what it was out there in the mud and, elbows up, to a cow. And sometimes they cooperate, most of the times they don't, and what that looked like, and so if people were considering the profession, they had a realistic expectation of what it was like. And truthfully, the multiple encounters with the people, because I think that may be the biggest challenge for a lot of veterinarians is the people work that's involved in the veterinary profession. But you mentioned earlier about your practice and a toxic person who came in, and talk to us a little bit about that dynamic and what this one person who came into the practice basically shredded everything that you had built there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in coming into that partnership, originally it was a partnership of three, a new partner, and then the two older guard, and then myself. And right away, one of the other younger partners left because of a great difficulty of working with the two other partners, right? Which should have been a great red flag to me, but I'm very stubborn and think that, I can push through and manage everything. And I was able to have a successful growth in my practice with that. I was doing, my social media marketing. We had gone from getting 1 to 2 new clients per year to then 1 to 2 new clients per week or more, and which is significant on the large animal side. Like here at Fen Vet, saying 1 or 2 new clients, like we get 1 or 2 new clients at 8 a.m. and 5 seconds in. Like, so client acquisition in small animal is certainly a lot different, but like 1 to 2 clients per week was spectacular. We grew the practice 3x from when I came in within just a few years on the back of that storytelling, on the back of that social media marketing. And not just that, but also just my enthusiasm for business. I love the growth aspect of managing a practice. That's the funnest part for me. So I was able to operate successfully and manage within an already toxic relationship that had already existed. Like I inherited that with the other partnership group. But then another associate came in, and it was just very apparent to me very, very quickly that things were not going to work well. And I had to strategize. This is a long career. This is a big choice, and essentially I was continued to be pushed into a partnership with this toxic individual, and I just saw the writing on the wall of how destructive that this was going to end up being. And in that offer to buy the practice outright, I came to the realization that I wasn't going to be able to manage the partnership in a way that was safe for me. I wasn't going to definitely be able to bring in this toxic individual, so I had no other option. And tried to purchase the clinic outright, and in that ended up on the outside.
Yep. Now, and when that happened, I think that was, and you had been doing some speaking, and so you had, some other activities that were definitely happening for you. But then you had an idea, And you decided that you were going to open a very unique small animal practice. And I know this because I watched it from the beginning, probably before the beginning, having been involved a little bit in some staff training for you. But, it's scary to go from cattle production vet to very different model of small animal vet. So that's definitely a curveball. How did what are kind of your thought processes there? How brave did you feel like you had to be? How scary was that big change of events?
Yeah, so this is a very long question. So I'll try to hit the highlights, but I could talk about this in isolation for hours. So in that, leaving that partnership, I unfortunately also was in partners with the other veterinary clinics that I owned. So it became very apparent that I had to sever all of those ties in order for me to have any sort of mental health at all because of the toxicity that existed. In that, and I do want to talk about this briefly, I had this rare opportunity in life to do whatever I wanted, essentially, right? Not in terms of like I could go to Ibiza for 3 years and buy a palace and in the UK, but I'm saying like I now had the opportunity to think about and strategize because us as veterinary professionals or anybody within any sort of business, we're on a treadmill, we're on the hamster wheel, we're running, we're doing great things, we're managing, we're work-life juggling, we're doing everything that we can, but it is very difficult to get that outside perspective of what am I doing, right? Because you just have you have that immediate bank payment, you've got that human resource issue, you've got that person you need to hire, you've got that person you need to fire. Like it's hard, right? It's hard to take that step back. And one question that veterinary students, I've had dozens and hundreds of veterinary student connections. I've had so many different external rotations come through my practices over the years. And there was always a very common themed question in that, like, what was your biggest failure or regret? Students love to know how I failed. And the answer has always been the same. Well, first off, I say I fail literally every minute of every day. There's always something that I could have done better. But, in terms of my biggest regret, since the second that I walked into that first vet clinic in Beaver Lodge, Alberta at 16 years old, I had never taken a moment to reflect on anything. I was this vet student that, the second I graduated high school, I was working to pay my bills 7 days a week, 100-hour weeks throughout the summertime. The second I graduated, the next Monday, I was there 8 o'clock for my first vet job. I rarely took vacation. I was always running. And now I had this rare opportunity to just breathe. So that's what I purposely did. Me and my young family, my wife and 3 kids, we loaded up in a trailer and we just started driving south to the States, and we just went hiking. We hiked through the redwood forest and through Zion and the Grand Canyon and through the deserts of California and Arizona. And in that was where I started to try to find myself of like, what is this next version of Cody's career going to look like? And it could have been anything, right? It could have been with anything within the realm of veterinary medicine. And one day I was sitting there in the desert with a notebook and I made an XY axis of veterinary medicine. I did on the X side, I did all the things veterinary clinics do. And on the Y axis, I did all, if they do it poorly, it was low. And if they do it well, it was high. And I just went through all the things we do. And I just kind of did an average for where I thought the industry laid. And when I got to, medicine, I ranked that really high. I think most vet clinics do great medicine. Certainly there's exceptions, right? And as I kind of kept going through the list, food sales, grooming, like everything a vet clinic could do, I got to customer experience, and it was rock bottom. I listed it very,
Preaching
very
to the
low,
choir here.
right? And
Yeah.
in that is where I became obsessed. And I think it was just me, clarifying in my brain of like, what do I love? I don't think every practice owner needs to obsess over customer experience, but for me, it was just really, really exciting because I was seeing nobody doing it. And when I thought about how can I unleash my effort over the next 40 years in the profession that I so love, it doesn't matter if it's cattle medicine or dog medicine or horse medicine. That part has never mattered to me. It was veterinary medicine is what I love. And I just saw the biggest possible opportunity and excitement for me within the companion animal space, because I saw what was happening with corporate consolidation. And on the privately owned side, frankly, I thought most of it was pretty boring and poorly executed. So it just seemed like the biggest, best opportunity for me to jump in. And that's where I landed. And yes, it was scary. It was terrifying. Every day is terrifying. I had a lot of mixed animal and large animal experience, but not running as, a strictly companion animal practice. The answer to how do you manage that is team. Like that's just the answer. Hire a great team, and the rest is history. And try really, really hard.
Yeah. Well, I just love the customer service because honestly, I've been training it my entire consulting career, but I've absolutely been training it my entire veterinary career. And somebody said to me one day, I was teaching a class for a corporate group in Raleigh, North Carolina. And they said, I was your competitor, like right down the road. And we all wondered what the hell you were doing down there, right? That we could not blast clients away from you, even though we were less expensive. What did you do? And he said, we knew, the medicine was good, but that wasn't it. And now after listening to you talk today, I realized it was the hospitality that you offered, and it didn't have anything to do with the medicine. And I said, no, it really didn't. I mean, we obviously our outcomes were good and we were AHA accredited. So we were pretty bells and whistles, but it was the way people felt when they came and went. And the fact that we looked after our clients like family, we got Christmas cards from them. We kept albums of as their children grew with the dogs. We had the whole photo album of their Christmas cards they would send to us. And that's how we looked after people. And that's what made them loyal. Is we were very transparent about stuff. We gave tours all the time. And so I want to talk to you about like how you manifested customer service excellence at Fen Vet, because it's a model that most people probably would be uncomfortable with because there's such transparency there. But for me, I just see such great value building with the way you work.
Absolutely, that conveying that value. There's a lot of different facets to that. Once again, it was just the thing that excited me the most that I saw wasn't being executed properly. So for me, what I was hoping we would be able to do is to provide a 7-star customer experience. Like this is the goal, just a solid 7 stars, because I think in general, 5-star experience in a vet clinic is pretty standard, like because unfortunately the expectations are really low.
That's
right?
Yes.
You just do some regular medicine and be able to book somebody within 2 weeks and they're pretty happy.
Yeah. And get into the room on time. I mean, that's the other thing. If you get into the room on time, they've considered they got a good experience, right?
Right. Like that's a 5-star experience.
Pretty low bar.
It's extremely low bar. So I'm like, we can do 7 stars. So in that, just shedding away all sort of preconceived notions. I think that's probably just one of the things that I do the best, is just because something's been done a certain way for a very long time, I don't take it for granted that that's the only way to do it. A perfect example is phones. Phones within a veterinary clinic. I get it. In 1986, when you ran a veterinary hospital, you needed to somebody to pick up a landline and to be able to write in a paper book that Mrs. Jones was coming at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I get it. You needed somebody physically on site. But fortunately, we just kind of kept thinking that that's the only way that we could do things. And here we're sitting in 2022 with cloud-based PIMs and voice over internet protocols and Slack, and we still think that we need to have this, team of human beings sitting at the front desk. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, because especially with the customer experience standpoint, we don't have any phones ringing up at the front, because I think it detracts from the customer experience. So when somebody walks into the door of Fen Vet, they are instantly greeted by a client care coordinator who is not on a phone. They saw that dog coming because that's their job. They know who it is. When it walks into the door, we have a very sleek desk at the front, not this big monolithic desk that veterinary receptionists love to hide behind, especially with like the monitor up high, and now with the plexiglass out front. And they just get to sit there and be on the phone and not interact with the customer. We encourage that dog interaction and that customer interaction. So the second that dog walks in, our client care coordinators are, over petting, treats, they're on the scale, and their appointment starts now. Everybody that walks in the door, their appointment starts the second that they walk into the door. We've crafted the scripting to be very specific. The client care coordinator goes in, there's the digital cue back to the veterinarian that the patient has arrived, but the client care coordinator is going through all of our scripting down to, we're offering nitro cold brew coffee or sparkling water. That's bougie. It's not Dasani. It's not bubbly. It's not Perrier. It's very high end stuff. That when you give a customer in a vet clinic a nitro cold brew coffee that looks really pretty, their brains melt out of their ears. So even before that vet has walked into the door, we've completely exceeded all expectations. Their appointment was started on time. They didn't hear a phone. We have classical music playing in the front. We have specially curated scent, so it doesn't smell like a vet clinic. We work feverishly hard at cleanliness. We train our staff properly. We hire friendly people that love interacting with other human beings, and their appointment is started. And then on top of that, they're sitting in the most beautiful vet clinic they've ever seen, with Italian lime plaster and handmade lamps and big windows that they can see out of. We've even done things to like curate our Wi-Fi password to puppy kiss, because when you tell people the Wi-Fi password is puppy kiss, they smile 100% of the time. So now we have them drinking sparkling water, which is scientifically proven that when somebody's eating or drinking, they can't be super mad. Your brain is you cannot be furious and drink a sparkling water. It just can't happen. It goes back to like our development as babies. And when we have a drink of milk, we get all the nice hormones, and we aren't mad anymore. When you're raising a child and they're really, really mad, offer them a glass of water, and it like shuts down that fear response instantly, right? Like we do so many things to completely disarm our customers. So when the vet walks in, that value has already been communicated. That trust has already been communicated. So the vet comes in, we certainly work very hard to make sure that that veterinarian is in through scheduling, through training, through proper communication channels, that we don't have clients waiting more than 5 minutes in their exam room. We schedule appropriately, we staff appropriately. So we don't have vets running behind. Like we bust our butts to make sure that that doesn't happen. We do our appointment. Everything is wonderful. If we need to go back to the treatment room, we have a giant window where the customer is allowed to come out of their exam room to interact with their space. We actively encourage it. They can see directly into the treatment area with this big giant window, and they can see the value that's happening. The perfect example of this, we just had a man come in with a sick kitty. It was very old. It had been accidentally left out overnight. So So it was a little hypothermic, and this man just was a walk-in. He sat down in front of the treatment window. He saw the medical team descend on his cat, IV fluids, catheters, warm, fluid warmers, warming bags, blood glucose, the ECG. You saw all of this happening, all this activity happening around his cat. And when he gets his $500 bill, he's just like, yeah, of course it costs that much. As opposed to like, he doesn't know if we just took the cat in the back and put it on a hot water bottle and walked away. And then he gets a $500 bill. He's like, what did they even really do?
Yeah.
So we convey that transparency. Once the appointment is over, we check our clients out in the room. We have that expectation that our client care coordinators are in that room within 30 seconds of when the bill's done. They check out the client in the room. They ask how everything is. You don't have that lineup at the front desk that's anxiety inducing, where you have the dog food pickup people mixing with the check-in people, mixing with the checkout people. Like it just, and you got German Shepherds running everywhere in that. So we don't have any congestion. We just try so hard to just like blow the endorphins and dopamine into these people's brains. So when they come to our clinic, they feel like they had a 7-star customer experience. None of what I said is magic. We just really, really try hard.
Yeah. It's so zen. I mean, you named it Fen, but, and this was funny too. I mean, I think you should even tell the story about naming the hospital, because the board in Canada has rules. I mean, very, very stringent rules about what you can name your practice. And Cody struggled to try to get the name, just the name in this hospital. But it is a Zen experience. And when you look at the architecture and you look at the materials used in the hospital and the open concept of the windows and the colors, that everything in it is just pleasing and soothing. And you just kind of feel like you've walked into a day spa rather than walking into this, the echo chamber of the giant lobby with all ceramic tile, where every dog bark is echoing like, through the Grand Canyon, reverberating. I just love every detail. And this is the thing I think about Fen Vet, is there is such attention to detail about the humans that are coming into the hospital. And we tend to build veterinary hospitals based on animal wear and tear, like what's going to hold up to the dogs. But you didn't look at it that way, right? You looked at creating this experience that didn't require wear and tear, because the animals aren't freaking out trying to get out the door, right? So it's also a fear-free experience.
Absolutely. And I talk about fear-free a lot as well. I certainly appreciate all of the concepts around fear-free. But I feel like what is missed at times is that emphasis on how does the human feel. That is so incredibly important that I feel like it's missed, because you can execute on fear-free principles when it comes to the pet flawlessly. And if that client sitting next to them is having an existential meltdown because there's been a lack of communication, because their expectations haven't been met, that they have white coat syndrome in general, and you haven't put in the effort to disarm and make them feel comfortable. It doesn't matter if you're doing fear-free with a dog or not. It just,
I have a whole talk called the
human.
fear-free human. If we take the fear-free principles and we understand reactivity, then we have to understand that humans are reactive animals, and we do all the things that we can do to calm their reactivity, because so many times the animal's picking up on that, and they're feeding off of each other. So the anxiety is passing both ways. So I think that fear-free, like you said, is really great for the pets, but using the fear-free principles to understand the human anxiety and stepping into that, say, how are we going to calm the people down, is a huge part of it. And so you have had no problem finding staff. In fact, you have people lined up to come and work for you. Tell me what the magic formula is there.
Yeah. So as I talk about, one of our core strategies. So our basic mission is to reimagine the veterinary care experience. So in that, we've created this great sort of beautiful aesthetic brand around this modern ecosystem. So Fen being this biophilic wetland that's very biodiverse. That's where all of our aesthetic, this wallpaper behind me with all the plants, the wood features, but more than that is this ecosystem concept. So with those core strategies that we've put together, customer experience is certainly on that list, but the other is culture. So everything that I've talked about on the customer experience side, we do just as much detail, if not more, in curating our culture. And this was the thing that I was most excited about doing a de novo, doing a startup, is I had gotten the experience of doing acquisitions in the past, and I knew what a challenge it was to inherit another person's culture, right? It is absolutely possible to curate that and to modify it and to build it into something beautiful, but it is really, really, really hard. And for me, I wanted to see what the experience would be like as if we put that level of detail into curating a culture from day one, with that expectation that everybody that comes into this practice knows that that's fundamentally extremely important to us as a practice, that practice culture is so incredibly important, and that we will protect our positive practice culture at all costs. Everybody knows at the team that I'm very black or white when it comes to protecting our culture. We'll do everything that we can to do that. So in that, it was starting from the ground up and making sure that Fen Vet is also an amazing place to work, and challenging industry paradigms around that to be able to do it. So as much as we talked about that, as that like the customer's dopamine is flooded when they come into Fen Vet because of the things like the beautiful aesthetic and so on. This is beautiful in the back of house for our team members. We've got beautiful big windows where sunlight can stream into the treatment room. We have focused very, very carefully on the types of people that we are hiring. We've even developed this word that just doesn't apply to people, but applies to everything, but the term Fenny, we've curated. So Fenny is just this descriptor term that we use for, is this thing the right fit? So an example would be like when we pick coffee, we don't pick just like Folgers or just Walmart brand coffee. We pick a Fenny coffee, so something that's bougie and extra and biophilic or natural or local. There's a 1,000 different things that goes into Fenny, but we're also trying to hire Fenny people. We're trying to hire people into our ideal culture as well. So that's really, really important. And yes, us as hirers, we all understand we're going to make mistakes. That happens, but you also have to be an adult and rectify those mistakes when they happen. That doesn't mean fire right away. Sometimes it does, but sometimes that means that you're going to now have to bust your butt to coach this person, back into what's needed. And that's really hard. That's a really, really hard part of this job. But like that's one of the best things that I love. So curating this culture of what we've been able to do in bringing these amazing human beings into Fen Vet has just been fantastic. Like everybody here would say that this is the best place that they've ever worked, whether or not it's in veterinary medicine or not, career veterinary technicians or not. Everybody gushes. I am getting a complex, and I've had to tell them to stop texting me because I'll get just endless nice text messages from my team constantly saying like, this is so amazing, I can't believe how happy I am. Like it's true. Like they go on and on and on about how happy they are. I just had a new hire. She had come to me and she said one day, Cody, I just want to tell you that I thought that I was an introvert, but I just realized that I'm not an introvert, I'm an extrovert. I was just really depressed. Like didn't even recognize, she just didn't want to be around anybody. She just thought that's who she was, but she was in a really bad practice culture. And talking about like corporate consolidation and how that's affected us, like it's the best thing that's ever happened for me being able to hire, because we've got such an amazing industry buzz that anytime that any of my team members go and work at a local ER clinic, like I really encourage. I don't have any non-competes. I don't have any no locuming portions to my contract. If anybody is considering signing that, please do not sign one of those contracts. You should be allowed to go and locum at other places if you wish. That's leaning into the insecurity of the practice manager owner. Like, if somebody doesn't want to work here, I don't want them to work here. I don't want them to feel like it's they're indebted to me, that they are trapped by their contract. But they go and locum at other clinics, and they're just inundated with requests to join our team. They're just, people are begging to work on our team. We have currently 11 veterinarians that are on a waiting list to want to work for us, on top of, the veterinary clinic that we're starting this fall, that's already fully staffed in terms of like future hires. Like, we're not struggling. My clinic is filled with corporate refugees, people who have absolutely burnt out of the poor mismanagement of the big corporations. I'm not mad at big corporations. That's amazing for me that all of these talented individuals are burning out and coming to me to try something new. It sucks when they come as broken human beings who have no confidence and have just been mismanaged and are, just shells of humans. But like, we fix them, we'll build them up, we'll get them back whole again, and they're happy.
Yeah. Well, your reputation is everything. And I truly didn't have a hard time hiring veterinarians when I was managing hospitals, again, because it was my first one particularly was very positive culture, and it had a great reputation. And I didn't need to hire very much either, because people didn't quit. So when you have this great culture, retention is, one of the key indicators. Oh my, people really like working here. And I would have people leave, and then, for, 50 cents more. And then they would come back and go, can I get my job back? Because these people aren't nice, and I really want to come back home. And I said, sure, you can come back. And I had to make a rule that said you could leave once and come back, but you can't leave again and come back, because that's not fair to everybody who stays. So we can't just have you coming in and out and going, no, and I changed my mind, never mind, come back. But it does matter when you build that culture. And the other thing that, from a business standpoint, is that people become very, very efficient and effective in their jobs, because you're not constantly training them.
Yeah.
And they are moving up towards mastery of their job. And when that happens, your labor costs go down exponentially. And people looked at me and go, how did you run an 18% labor cost? Because I was paying people more in 2005 than some people are getting paid today. And I went, because they were really good at their jobs and they had great confidence, and everybody said, the same thing to our clients. And therefore the message was very consistent. We didn't have, 5 doctors doing 5 different things and for the same procedure. And then everybody knew, everybody had been trained and they knew. So I know that this system works, and I appreciate very much, before you even started your hospital, you had me come and do some training for your team. So I feel very gratified that I helped build this thing in some way, shape, or form, that it's so exciting about it. So tell me about, how did networking, how did the connections that you have and helped you kind of, create this idea and build what you have, and, just help you be successful like you are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was, from that network effect, and it was even the network effect before Fen was even a twinkle in my eye. Being surrounded by just passionate people about the industry. When I was traveling the US, when we were doing the speaking circuit, which I'm so happy is coming back online. My requests are now finally coming back in. So it's nice that the world is rejuvenating.
Like we're opening back up again. Yeah.
I can't wait to get down to the States and speak again. But, surrounding myself with these amazingly enthusiastic veterinary professionals just that sounding chamber that I'm not the only one in isolation, that there's other people that have similar aligned values. At times I feel like I'm the crazy one and everybody else in the world is sane. But, getting exposed to people like yourself and Dan Markwalder and Adam Greenbaum and Danielle Lambert, like without those connections, I would have never done Fen. It was because it builds, that network just builds and builds and builds and builds, right? And seeing, these young veterinary professionals like Rebecca, like Seth, we've seen all these, Dr. Belinda in Australia, all these amazing veterinarians that I've got to watch them start their practices and have great success. And yes, of course, have challenges in that, just made me so excited as well. So just, seeing like-minded individuals attempt to do these things it makes you feel like you're not the only one doing it. So there must be something to this. So there's definitely that. And then being able to bring together all of those people to help build your team. Without the writing of Jessica Vogelsang helping me craft my mission, and Danielle Lambert crafting the brand and bringing yourself to speak to my team members, and Dan Markwalder to speak to my team members, and Adam Greenbaum of Whisker Cloud, I got to speak to my team members as my quintessential ideal client, this Southern California living with a bunch of Bostons running around the place. Like, he was my ideal customer. So I got him to speak to my team about what his expectations are at a veterinary clinic. So that goes on. And then I did have the secret weapon of also just having the power of social media. I started essentially doing these Fen Vet Chronicles, where I was just speaking about the things that were on my mind during this practice startup. And that's what brought me my first team. My first team came to me because they were seeing this veterinarian that was speaking these things that they believed in and they weren't seeing in their own practices. So, I got two senior technologists in Stacy and Jody from two respective practices. I just told them last week that Fen Vet wouldn't even be a 10th without what they've done in this practice. Like, it just their ability to see everything always, and to be able to be an advocate for their own team members, and to make things run efficiently and sustainably. It's not just running things efficiently to get through the day, but like, we got to do this again tomorrow, and we got to do this next month and next year and next decade. And how do we set this up so we enjoy coming in to work every single day? My first veterinarian, and it was because of this previous connection that I had through social media, client care coordinator. I've got one technologist that I was just talking about yesterday. She was following my story, and she started telling everybody at her corporate clinics about this cool guy named Cody who's looking to change the veterinary industry. And I brought her on as a technologist, and then she brought a vet with her, and then that vet brought another vet, and like, it just goes on and on. Like, the network is everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it is. And and people who think like you bring people who think like you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're getting the right people coming in through the network too. It's not, some negative Nelly that has been burned through 3 practices and when you ask why did you leave, it's always all the other people, right? That's why I left, because all those other people are horrible. Like, well, it might just be you, right? It's not just all those other people.
Exactly.
So I just love that the connection and how the story was told, and then how attractive the story is. And I know that Danielle is, one of the great branding experts out there, and certainly helps you tell your story. And you are excellent at it too. And so I struggle a lot with veterinarians when I'm working with consultations, is them understanding the value of telling this story well, and how it helps them. Actually, they can have stellar practices, but if it's hidden under a basket, it doesn't help you recruit and get the right people on your team. And you can only ask your team members so many times to say, hey, do you know somebody who wants to work here? Because you have to throw the net out a little bit further than that. And sometimes the people that they know, they don't want to work with, right? So that's the other thing. They're screening for you if you're doing it right.
Well, and
Um,
this is why we invest a lot of money into our webisodes. Like this
mhm,
is costing me about 50 grand a year for
mm,
us to hire a videographer to come in once a week and just capture a morning at Fen Vet and to edit together that story and just put it out as its true authentic self, because
mhm,
it's not the webisodes are not necessarily customer acquisition. I want them to be there in case somebody's interested in learning more about us and they want to take a look under the hood and see what the people look like and how they act, and like, that then I'm attracting like-minded customers. That's
mhm,
wonderful. But like, let's face it, it's the veterinary industry. We've got an endless supply of customers right now. So I think we should put our money into acquisition of ideal customers, not just any customer.
mhm,
So that's where the webisode helps. But where it's really, really helpful is that industry attracting, having the ability that you have that vet tech that's kind of lurking on the periphery that is interested in Fen Vet, and you can click a video and go down a rabbit hole of seeing what we're like. And what we hear all the time is we have these like-minded people come in for interviews and they're following all of us. And it's not just our webisodes, but like our veterinarians, our technologists, our client care coordinators are so obsessed with Fen Vet that they're telling our story from their own individual
mhm.
perspectives as well. And then people get excited about that. People know what we are. And there's no difference between then when you see us on a webisode or on our Instagram stories versus when you walk in the door. To me, that's so much more effective and better money spent than in a classified ad or just putting some bios on a website. We don't put our bios on a website. I want people to see us, and I want them to see the videos, to follow our story, and not just be like the boring Dr. Cody Creelman grew up in Beaver Lodge, Alberta on a cow-calf ranch and graduated from the WCBM in 2011. Who
I feel
cares?
like your speaker bio.
No, right?
Not
Nobody,
even
no,
that. Yeah,
nobody
not even the
cares.
speaker
The
bio.
only people that care about bios on a veterinary website are Snoopy practice managers from
It's
down the
true.
street.
It's true. Unless you're putting something on there that is a connection, like he likes to go kayaking and he likes to hike through the United States and that kind of stuff, because people go, oh, I like to do that kind of stuff. So that's the connection point. It's not he went to school and he wrote a paper on parasitology, blah, 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 blah. And believe me, I have seen it out there
Oh
on
yes.
websites like, no, a title of a paper for your PhD level, something or other, and people can't even read it. When I'm speaking, I even have people not read my bio. It's like, man, it's ridiculous. Just it's too long. I've been doing it too long. Nobody cares. Let me just get to the point. Get to the point. Um, I do want to make a point here. How long and when did Fen Vet unlock its doors?
Oh, so um, so I announced to the world in August of 2020 that this is what I was going to do. So from the time we started the ball rolling, I had construction commenced in November of 2020. I had my team hired in December 23rd of 2020. And then construction was finished and unlocked the door in April of 2021. My biggest mistake, I should say this out loud, my biggest mistake is I just had very average projections for market penetration. It was industry standard. My whole business model was based around just average market penetration and growth. I thought that we would need a second full-time equivalent veterinarian by about month 6 to 7, and we were 6 seconds in, and I had another veterinarian hired because I was going to manage, and I jumped in instantly because we were just instantly drowning. We had myself, one vet, 2 techs, and a client care coordinator when we started. And it was a rocket ship. So, fast forward at the year mark, we broke all expectations in terms of growth. There was Dr. Dan Markwalder told me one day that a de novo veterinary clinic cannot gross $1 million in year one. It's an impossibility, Cody. You will not do it. Don't even think about it. I had financial projections for about 600,000 in my first year. We broke that by about 300%.
So lay the groundwork, take care of the people, and the money shows up. I have been preaching this for 15 years out there on the road. Take care of your people, the money shows up. But for some reason, it just seems like veterinarians have got this ass backwards, and they are spending an hour looking for a nickel deal on a bottle of Keflex, calling every distributor in the world and not paying their people well. That's the other thing. You got to pay people. If you want talent, pay for talent, but then get the hell out of the way and let them do their thing. That's
right.
the thing. Do not micromanage your people.
Oh, I should one just like little small tip just on that. So I don't do classified ads. I just post on my Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram whenever we need to hire somebody. And I do the simplest job ad possible. I just list what the position is for and what the compensation is, including what the wage is. And I noticed that I ruffled a few feathers within veterinary medicine by posting tech starting at 30, TA starting at 21, that I'm paying for their cell phone and their health benefits and their disability, and giving them 5 free pairs of figs and a pair of Vessi shoes. Apparently the figs were really popular, but
figs are big.
just be transparent. Just don't waste veterinary technologists' time by making them inquire about a job and then telling them you're going to pay them $17 an hour. Just tell them what the job is for. And if you're not getting any applicants, then maybe you need to increase the wages. And if you can't afford to increase wages, increase your price. It's just pretty simple. It's pretty simple math. But yeah, just transparent classified ads. You don't need to write this big story about why it's all the same, right? Why in a job ad are you telling people that you have DR and an IDEX blood machine? Nobody cares.
No, I've seen so many ads that look like an equipment list.
Why?
Why? But the other thing is, what are you promising, right? So that you bring people into your practice and you expect them to give their time, their attention, even some of their time after work, and think about these things. But what are your promises to them? Because we don't tell them we will train them, we will mentor them, but we do tell them that, but we don't do it. That's the other thing. There's a whole lot of false promises. And yes, we will mentor you as a new grad. We will give you training. We will, let you do CE. But then when it comes down to it, we're like, no, we won't. There's no time. This is my biggest gripe. When veterinarians tell me we don't have time to train. And I feel like, you know what? You have time to do anything that you consider important. So if something came in bleeding and dying, you would make the time to do it. So this is a bleeding and dying situation for your staff. Make the time. This is my soapbox.
I love it.
Well, Cody, we're running out of time here, which I appreciate your time so much. And I know that you have lots of things going on because you're opening another hospital and already probably fully staffed and ready to roll.
And we're looking for locations for number 3 right now. So,
okay. So any of my Canadian friends, pay attention to this in that location. And you obviously have a great employer here with great talent on great teams and clients who are targeted to appreciate that. That's the other thing. I will say, in my experience, when you do target clients appropriately, when you treat them extremely well, that they are absolutely willing to pay your prices to get the service that they want. If you poorly target, you will have people come in there who bitch and moan and gripe, and they're not your people, right? They're not your people.
Exactly. And if you're running things appropriately, this has been my soapbox for the last couple of weeks. If you're running things appropriately, and your negative Google reviews, there's a direct correlation to all my negative Google reviews are clients that I've fired. Shocking.
Yes. 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 Behaving badly? No, we don't let you tear our culture down. So very good. Yeah. Yeah. There's obviously, as a communications coach and instructor, I feel like if we had better training on how to handle and manage clients, then we probably would not be firing as many of them. But there are some people who just need to go, who just are not the right people, who want to fuss about every single thing and tear your team down. And it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. They take a lot of time. And if you do just kind of, I kind of a numbers girl, right? If you look at the financial challenge of these people, how much effort and time they take, how much exhaustion they put on to the management of your team, and then practically it's just not worth it. So I just say let them go free and torment other people. This is the same thing I say about toxic team members. Set them free and let them go find their appropriate place, because it's not with me. So Cody, just for fun, tell us a fun fact about you. Do you have like some kind of secret talent, a favorite song, something people would be surprised to know about you?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to surprise people because I've lived my life on the internet, and like people watch my children grow up. There's a video on my YouTube of my wife's C-section with a GoPro. Like it's a pretty
It's pretty transparent.
Right. And in terms of like, there was a part in my career, being a food animal veterinarian, where I, would pretend I liked sports so I could like do the hockey banter with, the how to write farmer. But like, I just really love veterinary medicine and nothing else. Like I dedicate every single second to this. I go home for supper, bath my kids, put them to bed, spend an hour with my wife. She goes to bed, open the laptop back up. I'm running reports, analytics, doing marketing, hiring people, sending emails. Like it's just what I love so incredibly much. But I think one question that I just get a lot right now is, do I miss cattle medicine, or don't I miss that former life? And certainly there is a nostalgia and a wholesomeness of traveling the prairies in my pickup truck with my truck dog, in the front seat, and visiting with farmers and stuff like that. But once again, it was never, I would never say that I was passionate solely about being a cattle veterinarian. I was just really happy because I was a veterinarian. Like that part doesn't matter to me. And in terms of like, and I get just as much satisfaction from that, cute little schnauzer puppy appointment as I do in terms of doing a C-section on a cow. Like it's all amazing to me. I think one of the things that was like a surprise to myself is I thought, and I certainly do, I miss the farmers, I miss, that lifestyle. But one thing that I didn't realize I wasn't getting was on the companion animal side was just the connection and the intimacy with the team. I couldn't believe how rewarding that was, because while we had a big team with the food animal practice, we would huddle and scurry, right? Somebody would be an hour north and somebody would be an hour south and somebody would be 2 hours west, and we would just huddle and scurry, and you're just, in isolation in your truck doing your things by yourself. And then you would visit with the farmers, which is certainly rewarding. But like, what I love about companion animal medicine is like that coming in with that team every single day and how strong that bond is. That's so much what I love about the companion animal side. So for me, it doesn't matter if it's a horse vet practice, cow vet practice, a companion animal practice. It's all fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the animal people are the best. And I always say they're the most patient people in the world, truthfully, because if you get out of bed first thing in the morning and step on a hairball that your cat is vomiting, you know what, that's just life. Then that's, those are people that are pretty chill. And that's how we go about our day, because animals, animals are animals. They're just going to do stuff to us all the time. Well, folks, that concludes this episode of The Bend with Dr. Cody Creelman. We lost him there at the very end, but I'm sure that you're going to be enlightened by the story that he had to tell and all his unique ideas about how to run a great hospital in veterinary medicine. Please continue to listen to episodes of The Bend and share it with anyone you think will be interested in hearing some great life stories from Vet Med. Thank you, as always, for your time today, and I look forward to connecting with you again on the next episode of The Bend.